Seifert here.
Order. Roll call, please.
Anna here.
Sullivan here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here.
Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
And Don, I think we need you.
I do see that Commissioner Oldani is logged in, but I don't believe that he is able to unmute his microphone at this time.
Okay, just everybody should be aware of that. Carrie, before we begin, could you read in the notice of video conferencing, please?
The City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency under the March 16th and March 20th advisories from the Office of Open Government in the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Per the advisories, this meeting being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capabilities was duly noticed per the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Members of the public have been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to property owners within 300 feet of a proposal, via the COVID-19 information page on the city's website, via social media, and via the information contained on the meeting agenda. This meeting may also be viewed at the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. Plan commissioners and participants are initially muted upon joining the meeting. Plan commissioners and staff have the ability to mute and unmute their microphones throughout the meeting. Please mute at all times except for roll call, motions, voting, and when recognized by the chair. Roll call and voting will occur per the usual and customary procedure, starting from the plan commissioner's seating positions south to north in the common council chambers. The chair will facilitate questions and comments by calling on each plan commissioner or by requesting the use of the raise hand function in the Zoom webinar control panel. Only speak once you have been recognized by the chair or moderator. Applicants, the representatives, and all other participants who wish to speak will be unmuted when there is a direct request for information from the plan commissioner's staff. When the participant utilizes the raise hand function within the Zoom webinar control panel and the moderator verbally indicates that they are unmuted, or when a phone participant dials *9 to indicate that they wish to speak, and the moderator verbally indicates that their line is open. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record, then proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested. There shall be no private messages or side conversations during the meeting utilizing the chat or Q&A functions. Chat and Q&A messages are part of the public record. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. That will get us to approval of the minutes of November 24th, 2020. If commissioners would all please take a look. And when you're satisfied there's no omissions, errors, or corrections that are needed or discussion, I will entertain a motion.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of November 24th, 2020.
Lorick will second.
Roll call. Roll call, please.
Oh, Oldani, aye.
Christine, can you start off the roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, I do not see that she is on any longer. I think maybe her connection dropped.
She may have dropped. Matt, would you please start us?
Sullivan, yes.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay. Hopefully Commissioner Hanna will rejoin us momentarily. While we're waiting for her, we'll continue on. Carrie, would you go over significant common council actions, please?
Council approved the following: an ordinance approving a conditional use permit for automotive, motorcycle, recreation vehicle, and marine sales on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road, and a real estate purchase agreement for a portion of the city-owned property located at 9300 South Fifth Avenue, 4001 East Lake Vista Boulevard, and 4200 East Lake Vista Boulevard. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. That gets us to new business 5A, and this is very exciting. This is really big news for the city. The Plan Commission is going to be seeing a presentation by Rinka on F Street on future developments on the properties at 9300 South 5th, 401 East Lake Vista Boulevard, and 4200 East Lake Vista Boulevard. We will not be taking action, but we're going to share the plan with the Plan Commission. You're going to be very excited and impressed with this. Joining us, actually, we have our city administrator, Andrew. Would you like to say anything before the presentation?
No, you summed it up nicely, Dan. We're really excited to really unveil to the public tonight, as well as the Plan Commission, the really progressive residential neighborhood we're planning and have been planning with our partners in F Street and Rinka for the past 18 months. I may have some comments after Dan to help wrap things up, but I would just point to and remind the council members on the commission, as well as the commission, that in our community strategic action plan from 2017 to 2020, we had two significant, impactful initiatives on that. The first one was to market the lakefront properties that we have in our name, market them on a regional and national level, and really be aspirational and unconventional with a vision for that area, unique. And then secondly, we've taken strides and studied and are executing a plan additionally to really develop single family homes in the city and home ownership. And you can see that this development that you'll review tonight and see does that as well. So two really significant initiatives that we're tracking down with this development. And I guess I'll pause, and maybe Dan, if you could throw it back out to the Rinka team and the F Street team for introductions, and then we can talk later again.
Certainly. And again, members of the commission, some of you are newer to the commission. Keep in mind the lakefront development, even though we've been working on this particular phase of it for 18 months, this is better than 10 years in the making to redevelop this land and open it up to the public, which has really, it would have never been open to the public. So this is over a decade in the making here. So with that, we'll have Kevin let Matt Rinka and Scott from F Street take over.
All right, they should be able to unmute themselves and share their screens if needed.
Mayor, thank you for having us to the entire Plan Commission. Thank you for having us as an introduction prior to us commencing our presentation. I just would like to give a brief introduction. My name is Scott Lurie with F Street Group. Over the last 18 months, we've had the great pleasure of working with the entire city administrative staff, Andrew Vickers, and the entire team there, to Doug Seymour and a lot of other vested parties to get to where we are today. We're very excited to share this unveiling with you, and certainly great to be here, and look forward to our future development and plans inside of your amazing community. And so with that, I'll let Matt introduce himself. Steve Morales will be doing the presentation on behalf of Rinka and F Street, and we'll certainly be here to field questions and conversation. So thank you for having me, and I'm going to mute now so that Matt can introduce himself.
Hello, Commission members. Matt Rinka, partner and founder of Rinka. So excited to be here today and to unveil the work of so many team members. Thank you, Andrew and Doug, as well as Larry Haskin, who's with us as well. With that, I would like to turn it over to Steve Morales, a partner at the firm.
Good evening. My name is Steve Morales, one of the partners here at Rinka. Very delighted and excited to go through this presentation here for you. So Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for having us, and very excited to get started here. So I will share my screen here and go ahead and get started. All right, thank you. Well, I'll jump right in here. Obviously, this is has been a great project for us for quite a long time here. And when we look at a project of this magnitude, we have to take a little bit of a step back and understand kind of what the opportunity is here. Understand that there's a lot of research that a project like this is owed, as well as take into consideration all of that into the design as we kind of move it forward. So some of the initial questions we ask ourselves is why. And there's some very clear ideas here that it's a very transformative development. It certainly has amazing access to Lake Michigan. And the Lake Vista Park has always been a kind of a catalytic project for the city. It's also a very unique opportunity for the lakefront area itself. And we're very excited to kind of answer and answer some of those why questions through design. So who it's really a partnership with Rinka leading the design efforts, and F Street leading the development side of this project. So you can see a lot of great projects in the past, but done both individually and together. And as we kind of start to understand that opportunity, we really have to, as I mentioned, this project like this is owed the research. And some of the most staggering research that we're able to find here is that really, if you look at the past to where we are today, families in general have really gotten a lot smaller, but the houses have gotten a lot bigger. And with that have become far more expensive. So certainly one of the ideas here is understanding some of those barriers and how do we start to solve some of those during design. The research really included kind of four various kind of avenues of looking at certain things, certainly studying other developments that have done similar things across the country, modern housing movements in general to understand the best kind of approach towards residential development, future forward transportation, understanding how the world works today from a transportational perspective and in the future, and certainly understanding the value of amenities and recreational opportunities in this development. And so when we look at some of these developments in the past, we look at some case studies like Seaside, Florida, which started off with a great vision and a great mantra to try to develop essentially an ideal community, and unfortunately has gone the way of not being able to be very accessible. And so we learn from some of the mistakes that the developments like this have had when we're trying to solve some of the problems that we look for in new residential development. Certainly Bainbridge Island and the way that developed, a very different kind of development, but really kind of focused on the idea of intergenerational living, going back to some of those kind of very community focused ways of growing up in a neighborhood. We also look at large scale developments like Mueller in Austin, Texas, former airport site that had a lot of acreage and took a little bit different approach with a little bit more diverse housing typologies, certainly a focus on amenities with residents living less than 600 feet from green space, and also a highly functioning kind of new development. Similar to that, Stapleton, Denver, another large industrial conversion site, again, very similar in the diverse housing typologies, extremely pedestrian friendly, because of its scale, able to bring in mixed use components to it, and certainly has more of those urban characteristics that really can make a neighborhood feel really connected. If you look across all of those, you really find that there's a kind of a direction here to increase the amount of green and amenity space in the neighborhoods. It's really focused on shared amenities and spaces in between all of the various community members. It's very pedestrian focused. One of the big pieces of it, it has a lot of diversity in the housing typologies and in the offerings in these neighborhoods. It isn't one type of living situation. And all of them start with some very diverse goals and some common design elements that give the place a certain character. Understanding some of the modern housing movements, which I won't spend too much time here on, but looking at things like co-housing, prefabricated design, and smart homes, it's good to understand kind of how modern families of different shapes and sizes start to live together in neighborhoods and understand the life cycle of families. Prefabrication from the standpoint of bringing economy of scale to a construction typology that will help take costs and drive them as low as possible to make the development as accessible as it can be, and certainly smart home and sustainability ideas that are going to help make these homes very sustainable over the long term, where true sustainability is really kind of the long lasting nature of neighborhoods and those homes, and certainly will provide benefits from a cost perspective, and certainly convenience and technology for those residents. Also thinking about transportation and kind of the future of it, right? Understanding the walkability and how, you know, the current situation keeps us as a very destinational environment here in this part of the country. Although there are, you know, certainly opportunities here to kind of increase pedestrian connectivity, certainly put a focus on the walkability and transit orientation, and certainly bikeability, you know, aspects of development, a very key focus for us here to make sure that we don't generate any ideas here that are very car dependent. And also looking at amenities as well, looking across all those various case studies, understanding the amount of focus that's been placed on them became really a big driver for us here as we look to design to solve some of those problems. In summary, the case studies really focused on a lot of shared spaces and interactive type of opportunities, certainly amenities, the modern housing movements, certainly thinking about more of a community focus, certainly kind of creating you know, opportunities for sustainability and efficiency, and certainly decreasing financial burden when you look at economies of scale. Future forward transportation, certainly walkability, micromobility, and autonomous vehicles being considered in the future, something that we can't ignore as we look ahead. And amenities and recreation, really understanding that you know, for a community to really be vibrant and really become a neighborhood, it really has to have access to green space, ample opportunities for activities that are very diverse, intergenerational activities, opportunities, and certainly focus on kind of a whole community aspect. We can't you know, ignore the fact that there's a lot of experts in the world that are looking at the way these get developed, and certainly the gold standard of that is Tracy Cross, and we did engage a market study with all of the various stakeholders here involved, and kind of the highlights of it is that there's you know, really you know, it's a great location. There can certainly be great absorption, so there's certainly a need for more doors in the community, up to 660 per this report, with great absorption over the course of time, and really kind of supported the idea of various diverse housing typologies to make sure there was a good offering for those residents that wanted to join your municipality as part of the development. And so our research really kind of informs our design. All of the elements I just went through really kind of get us to the point of our design drivers, or the rules of the game, if you will, as we look for design solutions to solve a lot of these, you know, these concerns and opportunities. And that's really kind of focusing our design on a few key things here. Community certainly being a big aspect of that, diversity in terms of accessibility to various different housing types, sustainability, obviously a great you know, idea to kind of champion and find different ways to incorporate into the project. Certainly keeping it very pedestrian oriented, amenity rich, knowing that a lot of the great precedents we saw were very successful in doing that, and certainly adaptable, certainly making sure that it's ready for the future, flexible, and can continue to be a timeless development. So all of that kind of gives us what we look for, the framework for design, and how do we start to kind of approach the site and the opportunity here. Just a brief kind of diagram here that shows the location of the site, obviously very close to DTS and 94, not that far away, very easy to get to with some of the efforts that have been done by the city with the Ryan Road conversion to get down to the site as quickly as you're able to. Zooming in here a little bit, Lake Vista Park, obviously a great catalytic project that you know, created a great opportunity for the city to have access to Lake Michigan directly. And the areas in yellow really being the areas we're talking about today as part of the design solution that we're proposing here today. If we start to look at you know, the area in yellow, it's a fairly large site to kind of start to dissect and get into. And where we typically start is trying to create very logistical and very feasible and economic kind of ways to get into the site that makes sense, creating some great major access points, understanding that getting to the center of site and getting connected to the center of Lake Vista Park being one of the goals, and to kind of understand how this could start to drive layout for the balance of the planning. As we start to look towards how we can start to then subdivide those areas in between the major access points, we start to think through how residents could start to experience this neighborhood, walking out of your front door, being able to turn to the right or left and seeing those great vistas out over the park right onto Lake Michigan, which helped us orient the blocks on the west side of this planning effort over from west to east, as well as in the southeast portion of the bottom right corner of this area, really kind of orienting some of those homes and planning over out to Lake Michigan. What we then talk about is those amenity rich opportunities, the connection, the pedestrian connectivity, the walkability, and the green lines that you see from this last slide here to this one start to show a very intentional connection throughout the site, through the neighborhoods themselves, and around to a bigger network of essentially walking areas, trails, and paths that connect back over to Lake Vista Park, directly to Lake Michigan, to the bluff there, and obviously to the perimeter, and eventual future potential extension of the Oak Leaf Trail up in the top left corner, and a variety of other methodologies here to kind of make it a very well-connected site. And that gets us to this slide here, really the culmination of all of that planning and layout. You see kind of a layout here that tries to say that there's an opportunity here for a little bit denser neighborhood, a little bit smaller lots, but that also creates a lot of opportunity, both from an economics perspective as well as a how you interact with your neighbor type of perspective, to really kind of create this very vibrant and accessible community that has some of those amenity-rich opportunities, that great trail network and connectivity that would allow you to really traverse the site very quickly and get to some of those great amenities within the planning, as well as Lake Vista Park and the lake itself. A little bit of a explanation here of what you're seeing on the screen here. The yellow are essentially the villas or single-family homes with some attached characteristics. The purple being the townhomes in the center of the plan. The blue being all of the detached single-family homes, and the items in red there, you see kind of some of those L and U shapes are the multifamily buildings that would be in the 3 to 4 story range. So as you can see, it's a vibrant mix. Certainly paid attention to how we scale from the neighborhoods, from the single-family homes over to the rest of the other types of housing opportunities here. And the last piece I'll really touch on this plan is the pink dots and the pink line that you see throughout. That's really the connectivity, the pedestrian focused nature of it. And every dot is an opportunity that we're looking at and design for some of those amenities that can exist in the neighborhood, woven into and along the way as you would walk along the site and enjoy some of the great features around here. I want to exit out of the presentation here and play an animation that we've put together that really kind of shows a lot of that opportunity in a little bit of a three-dimensional form. I will play it with audio here, and hopefully this will play smoothly, and hope you enjoy. So I'll jump back here into the presentation, wrap with a few images that you will have noticed in the animation, and then certainly open it up for any comments or questions. A little bit about the marketing efforts behind this. Lakeshore Commons is the name that we're tentatively holding. It's really kind of this idea of creating a brand and an image around modern families. The fact that it's very much nature-based and that it's very community-focused with all of those elements that I talked about during the presentation. Certainly understanding the way that we're trying to talk about this development as a very accessible development that really focuses on families first and is really an opportunity for a new neighborhood. And we can't ignore the fact that this is really the future of community, and we're very excited about some of the design solutions that we're proposing here that really kind of champions a new way of living, and we can't ignore the fact that it's at the great shores of Lake Michigan. And so the future of community is here, and we'll certainly see you at the lake. With that, a few images that you will have seen in the animation I played, some overall shots here. Here we're in the southwest corner of the development site, over the top of the neighborhood here. A view back over the waters of Lake Michigan, looking back towards the development with Lake Vista Park in the foreground. Some of the green spaces, the amenity-rich areas here that are within the development and accessible to the public as well as the residents. And here an image of the spine that really runs through the center of the neighborhoods that really shows some of those communal areas that will be accessible and available for the community to enjoy and gather and be around each other. Another view here of the same spine as it connects, very connected neighborhood where, we've got bike lanes, we've got areas for people to use the area very safely, get around and accessible and cut through the neighborhoods in a very deliberate way. And then last year, the overall site plan that I showed earlier in the presentation to kind of get an overview here, as well as the previous kind of breakdown of the site. I'll flip back here to this image, and at this point, Larry, if you would, if you're on the call, if you could share with the group some of the great success story of the development, we'd be delighted for you if you could do that.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Mayor, my name is Lawrence Haskin, 7300 South 13th Street, Oak Creek. I served as the city attorney for Oak Creek from 1985 to 2015, and have been working with Andrew and his team over the last several years on all matters with regard to the lakefront, particularly this development. And let me just start out by saying the city's really enjoyed a tremendous partnership with F Street, with Scott Lurie, and with Rinka Architects. We've done a lot of work with Rinka in the past, particularly on Drexel Town Square, and they've had a tremendous impact on what's happened here over the last decade in the city of Oak Creek. This is obviously, as you can see, a transformational project. It's going to be a game changer for the city and for the lakefront. But it's even more compelling when you consider the history of this property. It's really a tremendous story of taking previously contaminated property and through partnership with the DNR and the previous property owners, and now with F Street and with Rinka, turning into a tremendous redevelopment. So just historically, over 100 years ago, Newport Chemical built a huge chemical complex, a number of different factory buildings, if you will, on the site of what is now the Lake Vista Park. And they obviously built that and operated in a time when there was no DNR and no EPA. And so whatever the byproducts were from the chemical operations just went back into the land, whether that was barrels or residue from the manufacturing operations. So no environmental oversight. DuPont bought the property in 1931. They continued to operate it as a chemical factory. They sold it after World War II to the federal government. Eventually, Alice Chalmers bought the property. They operated some manufacturing facilities on the site. And eventually DuPont got the property back. DuPont owned the north half of what you're looking at in terms of the entire development. A company by the name of Epic Polymers operated the south half. And in 2008, Mayor, as you alluded to, this has been going on for over a decade. So in 2008, DuPont and Epic were prepared to put a fence around this property and basically to not allow the public on it for public health reasons. And the city, under the leadership of then Mayor Dick Bolander, said, that's not acceptable. We're not going to let that happen. And we've got an opportunity here to open up this beautiful lakefront to the citizens of Oak Creek. And DuPont and Epic, we don't want you to do that. We want to work with you to find a way to remediate this property so it can be put back into productive reuse, and so that our citizens can enjoy the park, can enjoy a park, can enjoy the lake vistas. So we worked with DuPont and Epic and the DNR, and the DNR, I got to tell you, was a great partner in the process over a 6-year period. Number of environmental studies were done. A significant event in the remediation of this property was a partnership that the city forged with the property owners and the Department of Transportation to get 350,000 cubic yards of clean soil from the Mitchell Interchange project. The tunnels that you now see at the Mitchell Interchange project, that dirt that was in that land is now sitting on the property that we're talking about. It's a 2-foot engineered cap, and it was quite an operation, but it really led to the remediation of this property and allowed for what's happening today. In December of 2014, the city took over title to this property after DuPont and Epic had invested $20 million of their funds into the remediation of this property. And it was possible because of what's known as the voluntary party liability exemption program with the DNR, where a certificate of completion was issued, which means that as long as the property owner follows the rule book that's been presented to it in terms of how the property can be developed, we're immune, the city's immune, the developer's immune from any regulatory liability on the part of the DNR. And so as a result of that, the city took title to the property. We now have this beautiful Lake Vista Park, which is being enjoyed by all of our citizens. And now we're on the threshold of this phenomenal development. So that's just a little bit of the background and where we came from, and why we're here today to, with our partnership with F Street and Rinka, to present this great project.
Great, thank you, Larry. For the commissioners, again, Larry sums that up, but the work that went into this and the partnerships that were forged, whether with state entities such as the DNR or federal, the EPA, but these developers that have come down and taken an interest and worked with us. This isn't luck, this is preparation meeting opportunity, and it's been years in the making. And I can't overemphasize just how transformative this is going to be down in the southeastern part of our city. This is going to be as big as Drexeltown Square, if not bigger. It is forward thinking. It is really the time there, and it's just an outstanding thing. And keep in mind, it is a phased project, but it's well thought out, it's well planned. At this time, I just really want to not only thank F Street and Rinka for partnering with us. Can't do anything without great partnerships, but I really want to thank all our staff, both past and present. As Larry Haskins said, he served the city for many years in the capacity of city attorney, and Melissa Carls now fills that role, and she's worked countless hours on making this a reality, as well as Larry and Andrew Vickers as well. Nobody ever knows the backstories of this and what goes on behind it. But Carrie, Doug, engineering, our water utility, there is nobody in the city that doesn't play a role in making this happen. So I'm really excited. I was a brand new alderman, as Larry said, in 08 when this property became available, and we had to make a choice to do something with it. And many in the public said, you'll never do anything with it. Just leave it alone. It's too much money. Right now, we have a jewel of a park, and we're going to have a jewel of a development. And I just couldn't be more excited. And Andrew, I'm going to let you say a couple words here.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. You know, I think this is a sense of arrival. This has been an intentional process for the city, with a lot of community visioning and community conversations over the last, 10 or so years on what this could be. And, the commissioners obviously noted that this is very unconventional. This is not done routinely. It's, we can't find a really good example in the Midwest of the community we're trying to create here. And just know that that was, unconventional in nature, and it was intentionally so. We really wanted to do something really different. We really wanted to have, an appeal to various people at various stages of life, various ability to purchase or rent a home. We really want this to be an inclusive community. And this is a real shining example. We have a really good vision. The work we've been at it for 18 months and others on the environmental side of things for a decade. But really the hard work kind of begins now. I know the Rinka team probably doesn't want to hear that, but we have a lot to do to really bring this to fruition and realize its full potential. So I would just echo Dan's comments on, our planning staff, Doug and Carrie, our engineering staff and Mike and Matt, really, they're buckled in, because this is going to be a lot of work to create this built environment, and they've just been awesome to work with so far. So we have the right developer. We didn't have necessarily our own vision, but we have found in our partnership with Rinka and F Street the ability to hear the city's concerns and suggestions, and really mold them into a jointly and collaboratively crafted vision that we presented this evening. So with that, Dan, I'll yield back to you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And again, commissioners, I'll let you guys comment a little bit. We will continue on with the meeting. Again, keep in mind, the F Street Rinka team really put some time into the marketability of this. As you look at how that's laid out, there's single family, villas, townhouses, multifamily. This is really a diverse community. And again, the price points shall be right there. This is going to be I can't say it enough, something that's not been seen in southeastern Wisconsin, more or less the Midwest. This is really going to be unique. We're going to have a lot of things going on here as a planning commission going forward, but it's all going to be positive, without a doubt. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for the city of Oak Creek. And as Andrew said, it's really a culmination of all that work going back with all that history, and to be able to take land that that most people thought in the foreseeable future would never be used is absolutely incredible. Even just Lake Vista Park alone, the work that went into opening that up to the public, we're light years ahead of most. So, and that's really a credit, again, to the vision and the vision and work of not only our current staff, but past. We've had some really great people here, and we've stuck to our plan, and you can see what it's bringing us. So, Steve, do you want to add anything else before I just ask commissioners their views of it and some comments? Scott?
Nothing further from you. We're just excited for the opportunity here.
Okay. This is the fun part, commissioners. This is great. You are really the first group publicly to see this tonight. So it will be in the paper soon. So let's start with Christina. Impressions, thoughts?
Actually, it looks pretty good, and I like the diversity and the multi-use areas. I think that would be, like you said, very unique and very accessible to all. So it sounds like a good idea so far. Let's see how it goes.
Great, thank you. Matt?
Mayor, I have no comments. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Dawn?
Well, like most of you know, I live in Drexeltown Square, and I love the idea of the diversity and the shared amenities, because, you know, we have the square behind, you know, like that's right behind me, but we don't have those things that gather, you know, the gathering areas where we get to meet our neighbors. And with all the diversity on, you know, all the places that you can live, I think it'll be even better place to live than even where we are now that we love.
Great, thank you. Greg?
Not much to add. It's definitely exciting, an exciting time, and look forward to working through the process, both here in Planning Commission and with the council. So thank you.
Okay. Chris?
I echo everyone else's comments. This is just an incredible journey that we're going to start, and a lot of work has been done. But to your point, Mayor, earlier, we have a lot more work to do. So let's get ready to keep doing the heavy lifting and keep moving it forward. Just as this is forward thinking. I know one question I'll start getting from people is, where can I get information on you know, this layout? Where's the marketing literature and stuff like that? So that we can share later on, but that'll be a great tool I have to share with people. So thank you for bringing this to us, and I look forward to working on it in the future.
Okay, Don?
Yeah, it looks impressive. You know, I'm not sure how detailed the planning is so far, as you know, the rents, the owns, and, you know, what buildings are going where, and how much say the city will have in it. But I guess I'll looking forward to watch it kind of come together and see what the details are.
Great. Fred?
It looks great. I think it's a great thing for the city. The only thing that we can do now is go down and develop the lakefront so that you can utilize that with the marina and so forth. That would be the top of this thing.
Well, eventually we'll all get there. Chauncey?
Yes, everything looks very nice. I am excited for the city. The main question that I have is, what is the timeline from start to finish? When are we looking to get started?
Rinka team or Andrew?
I'm certainly happy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm certainly happy to take that question, unless you want to take it, Andrew.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So it is our intention to. So we're moving towards a developer agreement, which we hope to have ratified in the next approximate 60 days, give or take, with the holidays. It is our intention to begin moving dirt for infrastructure in mid-2021.
Nice. That is awesome. I look forward to it.
Likewise, thank you.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please, go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, and something that Fred mentioned really sparked my memory to really express that, you know, this is really the initial private development side of the lakefront. The city will continue imagining additional parks and open spaces, and really connecting what we call the North Bluff, which is just south of the MMSD facility there, and the South Bluff, or the Lake Vista piece that we're talking about here, are really connecting the public to that lakefront. So there is a lot more work to do. There's a lot more environmental work to do, but there is also a lot more investment and imagination that's going into various land uses, whether that be additional private development further to the north and actually some to the south. But even more importantly, the additional parks and open spaces and community amenities that we can add outside of this particular development, which is amenity rich, that we can add to the general public benefit here on the lakefront. So we have a decade or more ahead of us as a group, really plotting out and envisioning what we see for the balance of this lakefront property. This is just a significant portion of it, but it is still a portion. So there is a lot of opportunity here for a long time to come, and we will do it the right way, and we will continue to be aspirational with our goals for our lakefront.
Thank you, Andrew. And no, Andrew is right. And, definitely this is going to be the catalytic point of that area, but the ripples are going to go out. You're going to start to see Highway 32, Chicago Avenue take a new look to it over the years, probably. As this develops and people start to go down there, Fifth Avenue, it's just going to ripple out much the way the interchange impacted the center of the city here for us. It's kind of the same thing down there, in my opinion. So again, very few communities have the opportunity, more or less, the great people in place to take on a challenge like this and then make it successful. And Oak Creek's not only done it at Drexeltown Square, we've done it in other areas of the city, and we've done it down here before with Lake Vista. And I really look forward to what's going to happen here in the future. This is just, again, an incredible story of taking blighted land and bringing it back to useful vitality and sharing it with the public. This is just a great story. So, are there any further questions or comments before we move on? I really want to thank F Street and Rinka again. I can't emphasize the importance of partnership. And again, no city can do this alone. No developer can do this alone. There's going to be some hurdles. Don kind of talked about, will things move and shift and change? Of course they will as we get into the meat of it. But for the most part, we're very good at keeping our designs and our plans and our focus on the horizon of where we want to be. And our partners are the same way, and they've proved successful not only here in Oak Creek, but throughout southeastern Wisconsin with other things as well. We couldn't have better partners on this one. Matt, anything?
Thank you so much, Mayor. We appreciate everyone's time. Questions were, like Andrew said, we understand that we are at the beginning of maybe the toughest part, which is to make this a reality, and our team is up to the task. We will not let you down. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Matt. Okay. If that is it, we will end the presentation, and we'll actually move on to some of the business of the meeting. I want to thank Larry Haskins for coming on tonight, giving us that history. It means a lot, and really it's very important that the commissioners understand that. We do have some moving pieces, but that continuity of understanding where we've been and where we're going, and again, some of us are here, and when this journey ends in a decade or so, there may be other people sitting in our spots, myself included. So it's important that we make good decisions for the future of the city, and it's a big one. So, okay. We will move on with the meeting. I want to thank Scott, Matt, Steve, and your entire team. Thank you for taking the time out. I'm sure your phone's going to be ringing tomorrow. You really brought an early Christmas present here to Oak Creek, so to speak. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Let's moving on. we will go to 5B. It's a review of conditions and restrictions by Sam Dickman for the Dickman Company for a conditional use permit for the freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot at 1033, oh, I'm sorry, 10303 South Oakview Parkway. Carrie, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This conditional use permit was recommended for approval at the last meeting, so we're here tonight to discuss the conditions and restrictions as part of that conditional use permit. You'll recall that the proposal is for a freight yard, freight terminal, and transshipment depot facilities in a brand new multi-tenant building on the property. Potential uses are listed on the screen as warehouse, light assembly, and distribution. As of now, they do not have any tenants that have been announced, but the building can accommodate up to 4 at this point. All loading docks are on the west side of the building, 28 are depressed and 4 are at grade. They're anticipating about 80 employees amongst the entirety of the tenants. And they also include 28 stalls for trailers with 110 employee stalls separated on the east side. There are future areas for parking to accommodate growth in this area. Right now, they're anticipating hours of operation to be between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., although with distribution that will likely change based on tenant needs. These were some of the considerations that were discussed at the last meeting and were incorporated into the conditions and restrictions that are for the commission's consideration tonight. Rather than going into these, I'd rather go into the conditions and restrictions themselves. So if you turn to section 3 on page 2, the very first section states what is allowed as part of this conditional use permit. Those are allowed uses in the M1 district. And when I say allowed, that includes permitted and conditional. Of course, conditional use permits may be required at a later date, depending on what the tenant operational needs are. They also include the uses that are allowed in the Oakview Business Park Planned Unit Development, the conditions and restrictions, plans approved by the Plan Commission at the last meeting, and all applicable sections of code. There shall be no more than 28 depressed and 4 at-grade docks as shown on the plans approved by the Plan Commission at the last meeting, utilized for freight yard, freight terminal, and transshipment depot facilities. Any request for an increase to the number of docks utilized for freight yard, freight terminal, and transshipment depot facilities may require a traffic impact analysis, and completion of a traffic impact analysis does not guarantee future approval of additional docks. This was part of the discussion that we had at the last meeting concerning the infrastructure capabilities of the park itself. Section C recommends that there are no parking or storage of vehicles, equipment, merchandise, parts, or supplies within the parking areas, and that outdoor storage be limited to the parking of trailers and trucks in the striped stalls and the loading docks on the west side. In section E, landscape screening berms shall be required on the north and west portions of the property. Now, there was some discussion at the last meeting, and certainly going to be continuing into this meeting, regarding these landscape berms and screening of the dock areas, as well as some considerations that are sensitive to the neighbors in the area for lighting. There were some last minute plan adjustments that we received this afternoon, earlier today. Staff have not had an opportunity to give those plans the review that they deserve at this point. However, we did receive some information regarding a summary of those changes, including raising the berms and adding some additional landscaping, lowering the heights of the light poles that are in the parking lot, and also lowering the heights of the wall packs that are going to be on the building itself. There is some concern that was raised by Alderman Gale regarding adequacy of the landscape berms and making sure that the lighting is respectful of the residential neighborhood. He has had some conversation with the applicants, is my understanding. One recommendation that Alderman Gale had was to have the berms be at least 4 feet tall on the subject property adjoining the residential property to the west. And also at considering the north side, making sure that the berms are going to adequately screen the property, as the property may actually be higher than the surrounding areas. So those are the concerns. As far as E is concerned, we want to make sure that we have incorporated the berms at a significant height with the required landscaping to adequately screen the docks from the north and the west, and also to ensure that the lighting is respectful, which we will get to in section 5. So if we turn to section 4B, which is the next item for consideration on the screen, this states that trucks utilizing this facility shall adhere to all posted traffic signs and regulations. Trucks entering and exiting this site from any direction shall not utilize West Oakwood Road west of its intersection with South Oakview Parkway. This is in recognition of some of the concerns for truck traffic that are going past the intersection here and continuing west on Oakwood Road. Under section 5, this is where we get to the lighting, and this is directly carried over from the approvals that were given to the by the Plan Commission for the site and building plans at the last meeting. Light sources shall be shielded and directed downward, and light sources adjacent to single-family residential areas shall be shielded on the side of the fixture adjacent to the residential area. And the color temperature of all fixtures shall be limited to a maximum of 3,500 kelvins. In the revised plans, we were notified again. Light poles have been reduced in height, 17 feet on 2-foot bases, and the wall packs of the lights on the buildings have been lowered to a height of 22 feet. Building and parking setbacks are for the PUD in here. Section 8 mentions that the duration of the conditional use permit is for a period of 10 years. Should the applicant wish to extend that, it would require an amendment to the conditional use permit that would be brought back before the Plan Commission and the Common Council. With all that information, and obviously there will be some discussion points, there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant with us tonight? Would they like to state anything or just kind of wait for questions? Kevin?
We do have them on, and I believe they are available if there are questions, but we do also have a couple neighbors that signed up to speak as well.
Okay, let's allow the neighbors to go first, please.
All right. All right, anybody wishing to speak on this item, please use the raise hand function. We do also have a call in, so if you need to raise your hand on your phone, press *9 on your phone to indicate you wish to speak. All right, first up we have Marie Sandin, neighbor. Marie, you should be able to unmute yourself. We'll need your name and address for the record.
All right. Yes. Oh, what's wrong?
If you're on your computer and on your phone, you might have to unmute your
Shall I turn?
computer.
Shall I? Okay. All right, that should help.
Better if you hang up on your phone and we can talk to you through your computer. That works too.
Okay. All right, very good.
There we go.
All right. I wonder if a sidewalk or a bike path could be built along West Oakwood Road, just north of the berm. That would increase the friendliness of the project for residents of the neighborhood, because it would, obviously there will be more traffic on West Oakwood Road because of the employees, and that's fine. We recognize that, but it would be lovely if there were a safe path along the north of that project instead of let's see, 15 to 18 inch gravel and rather uneven verge along the pavement. I walk there every day, so I'm very much aware of the difficulty of getting to the lovely sidewalk in the business park.
Understood, Marie. We talked briefly about the possibility of that sidewalk extension. Matt, I think you were kind of the subject matter expert on that, if I recall. Any comments regarding that?
Mayor, I guess we would have to look at it a little closer. There's always potential to improve areas. I don't have a topo or cross sections or anything along those lines to make a very well-educated determination on that.
Okay. And Marie, if I remember right from the last conversation, the sidewalk ends basically at the entrance to Oakview Park.
Yes.
To the thing. You know, as we improve, we'll definitely probably, as Matt said, look at the possibilities for those amenities as we can get them in by different means. But at this point in time with this project, I want to say between the size of the berms and the shoulder of the road and the existing drainage, that wasn't going to be a possibility at this time.
Would it be a possibility? Excuse me, would it be a possibility if the project were just turned 90 degrees?
Can't fit it.
That gets very difficult. It sets off a chain reaction of many things. So I mean, the building's pretty much set where it has to be with its setbacks and things like that, Marie. We'd almost have to take that into provision if and when that intersection or Oakwood Road gets redone at some point in time. And you know, staff, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think that would be kind of the logical method for it. No, I don't mean to rain on your parade, Marie. I'm just, you know, we kind of looked at that, and we know we're going to look at that intersection again. So there's always possibility, as our engineer said.
Well, I'm 81, hoping to live until I'm 95. But so perhaps there will be a sidewalk sometime.
Yes, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but you know, I don't want to. I don't want to promise anything I can't deliver here.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for calling in, though. Appreciate it, Marie. Take care.
You too.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Marie.
No, you too. Stay safe, everybody.
Yes. Next, Kevin, you said we had a couple residents.
Yep. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. All right, we have Margaret and Tom Mueller. All right, you guys should be able to unmute yourself using the Zoom controls, and then we'll need your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Maggie Menard Miller, 320 West Oakwood Road. Marie, who I know as Joe Sandine, lives just a couple doors down from me. And if you, I kind of invite you guys to come down and watch her as she, you know, takes her daily walk, trying to get along Oakwood Road with her two walking sticks so she can walk to the graveyard to go see her husband's grave. He just passed away this fall. It just tears me up to watch her dodging these cars and trucks along that road because they come so fast and so frequently. It's only going to get worse. So tonight I'm just restating, they're urging you to make that berm as high as possible. I realize that that place has, you know, the right to be where it's going to be. If you make the berm at the height of the road and up 4 feet, that's not going to help us much, especially if the building is placed on some kind of raised ground as well. I know that the AIM warehouse further down, they built it up quite high over the road area. So if you're going to raise the building up, you need to raise the berm up and then put those trees up on top of that. And I'm with Ms. Sandine with the idea of flipping that around. If you had the employee parking lot toward Oakwood, it'd be much easier to control it with a berm than the trucks being toward Oakwood. So I know you said it's set in stone already or something. it's a big piece of property. I just can't believe they couldn't shift that around somehow to make it more friendly to the residential zoning right across the road from them. Then I had another question about during construction, will there be the hours of construction amenable to residents? When the FedEx went in behind our property, they were building loud and proud, you know, first thing early in the morning and beeping incessantly, you know, because of all the different machinery they're using. There's got to be some kind of limits as to how long that goes on all day and into the night. So that's what I have, Tom.
Yep.
Tom?
Should I go ahead or do you wish to?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Just give us your name and address, please.
Tom Miller, Mueller, 320 West Oakwood Road, same as Maggie. I have two questions. One is, how far off of Oakwood Road is this, the north edge of the building? And number two is, how does that restricted lighting, and it's good, you know, it has to be directed downward. It has to be real careful near us on the north side of Oakwood. But how does that lighting compare to a regular street light? A figure that you gave of Kelvin, that doesn't tell the regular guy anything. Those are the two.
Okay. You know, I'll let staff go with, okay, let's try to take these in the way I kind of wrote them down. We'll go with Maggie's stuff first. Staff, you know, I just kind of briefly touched on turning that building. Staff's point of view on logistically how that would work, how that wouldn't work, or is that an applicant question? Carrie, Matt, Doug?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think that was discussed at the last meeting. Why couldn't the building be rotated? And I think that there were logistical issues on the site that were raised by the applicant. So I will defer to the applicant to provide further information on that.
Okay, before we go to that, we'll bring them on, but I'll definitely circle that one. We'll touch on that a little bit. Construction timing and start and stop times. Typically, Maggie, construction starts at about 7 in the morning, and we do have ordinances in place. Our inspectors and our zoning goes out after them. Typically, they do have set times when they can work and start that, particularly adjacent to residential areas. So, Carrie, am I right? Is it usually 7 to 5? Where are we at on that?
Well, the noise ordinance comes into play, but there's also limitations on what the city can do in terms of restricting construction per statute. So will construction be going, 24/7? No, but there are some limitations on what the city can do in terms of restricting construction, for instance, on weekends. We're not allowed to do that.
No, that's understood. Just, I get it. I know we kind of dealt with that at the Amazon as well. And I thought we set like a 7:30 time to start with the machinery. I'm not sure if we put that into the conditional use or where we put it.
I don't recall there being anything in terms of the Plan Commission's review of the Amazon site that restricted construction.
Okay.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Matt.
Commissioner Sullivan, our ordinance states 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. is allowed work time. There is no set Monday through Sunday though.
Okay. So we would abide by that. And again, we would encourage the applicant, before you're going to fire up that machinery, 7:30 is appreciated, 8 o'clock. But do understand that they do have schedules to keep and things like that. So we'll try to be respectful of it. For staff, how far off of Oakwood, what's the setback on the building?
Per the required per the required setbacks for the PUD, they have to be at least 40 feet and they exceed that.
Okay. And then the restrictive lighting, they go with Kelvins now because everything's LED. The cutoff shades will be there. That's actually a color. It's a whiter light. But when you get into the electrical code, it actually goes by how many foot candles are required for parking lots, streets, and things of that nature. Typically, parking lot lights do throw a spread of light into an area, so they have an amount of foot candles per square foot. And that's, of course, based on the height. So the lower the pole, the less impactful the light has to be, so to speak. Typically, street lights are probably a little more spread out than a typical parking lot. Parking lots just fall under a different code that way. But again, with the cutoff shades and the lowering of the poles, I would imagine they were 20 feet prior. They're now at 17 on a 2-foot base. And then, of course, the wall packs went down to a height of 22 feet. It should be far less impactful. The difference being in that light is it's much whiter than you're accustomed to seeing, whether it was incandescent, not incandescent. We used a lot of sodium and things like that in the city, and it gave off a duller light than the LED. I think I've answered that as best I can. If we could we just kind of get the applicant in just to touch on turning the building again, Kevin?
Sure. We have the architect. We'll need your name and address for the record.
My name is Dom Ferrante, and I'm with Bryan Design Group, Bryan Building Corporation, architect and builder for the project. Address is 3885 North Brookfield Road, Brookfield, Wisconsin.
Great, Tom. Just for our residents, they talked about, what would possibility be of turning that entire building, having the employee parking lot
Sure.
to the north to Oakwood. Could you just kind of touch on why the layout was chosen?
If you look at entry points to the site, the way the building is positioned right now, the trucking access point is on the south bend, or the east-west southernmost portion of Oakview Road. And that is a more favorable location for the trucking. If we rotated the building where the office was facing that southern southern portion of the Oakview Road, then all the trucking would be on the northern end, more visible to Oakview than this, because you'd have the full length of the building with the trucking visible. And the access point then would have to occur on the north-south portion of Oakview Road. And if you look at the relative position of the driveway to the corner of the bend, and you flip that over to where that would occur if we rotated the building 90 degrees, it would put the drive right about at the tip of the landscape, the boulevard that separates the road. And that would not be a good location. It's too close to the intersection for one, and it would be a terrible location for trucking to be right at the main entrance there. It would block traffic potentially. The fire department wouldn't like it from a safety standpoint. So it's just not a good spot for it. So those are probably the two principal reasons for positioning it the way we did, because I think this is a better positioning for the building for a lot of respects: safety, visibility, and those are probably the principal reasons.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Sure.
And then I think the last thing, I don't know if Carrie, you touched on the berms. The residents were asking for them to be higher along the north side of Oakwood. And Matt, I thought you gave a pretty good explanation of that last time. If I remember, the higher the berm, the wider they get. We start to infringe on the ditch.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
We actually have revised plans that they provided where they did address the height of the berm. It appears that they've gone anywhere from 4 to 5 feet higher than the roadway. And their grading actually goes right out to the property line or right out to the right of way. So at this point, it looks like they've maximized their berm heights without, going more financial or increasing or developing or placing retaining walls, which would be the only potential way you could do that, which would increase the project's cost. So at this point, with just grading, they've maximized their berm height without going outside of the property.
Okay, and staff's pretty satisfied with that and everything?
They did meet over 4 feet. It's 4 feet plus, probably closer to 5 feet around the entire area above roadway and neighboring property.
Okay, and then plus the vegetation.
Correct.
Trees. Okay. I think I answered as many questions as I jotted down. If I missed anything, let me know. I know those aren't the exact answers you were looking for, but did want to try to cover that. Maggie, anything?
Mayor?
Yes.
Did I understand, Carrie, right, that this is 40 feet off the edge of Oakwood Road? That's 50, a little more than 15 yards.
It has to be a minimum of 40 feet, and they are more than 40 feet from Oakwood Road with the building.
Okay. Kevin, is there anyone else, or are we ready to have the commissioners weigh in?
We have one more neighbor, and that's Rob.
Okay.
Rob, you
Rob?
should be able to unmute yourself. We need your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Rob Malechko, 431 West Oakwood Road. So my property is directly west of the development, if you remember.
Yes, I do.
Good. So I would just echo the sentiments of my neighbors in stressing the importance of the berms. What I would ask is that, well, I'm sure we'd all like to go back to the days of soybeans and corn, but we know that that's not going to happen. So we've got to make the best of, the situation as we see it today. So I would just say, don't disappoint us by doing the minimum, but impress us by, doing the maximum when it comes to the berms and the screening. I think we'd all walk away a little more impressed with the development if that were the case, if we went a bit above and beyond the minimums. I've met with and talked to Sam Dickman, and he genuinely seems like he has a concern for the neighbors, and I'm not disappointed by what has been proposed, but if we can rise above the minimum, I think it would be a great thing for all the neighbors that are affected by the development. So my main point is go and do closer to the maximum when it comes to protecting the neighbors rather than just meeting minimum requirements.
I agree with you, Rob, and Sam Dickman, they've been good partners for us, and they heard the concerns. They've raised the berms, as Matt said, about a foot. They lowered the heights of the poles, and again, just based on drawings I've seen, I think it's a pretty ambitious landscape plan, more than we see on most, at least in my experience. So I think they'll work well. And again, as we get through it, you know, if there are issues, you can come back to the city. We can always try to work with them. So,
Sure.
Dom, you'd like to respond? Go ahead, please.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We did do the maximum that's possible, as Matt said, on the north. Basically, it's 5 feet. But on the west, we actually added even more there. If you look at the numbers on the west side, Tom, which screens your property, your house, that's more like 6-7 feet tall. So we are going above and beyond. And as the mayor alluded to, the landscape plan on here is much more landscape than any of the other properties in the park, and very much so more than most industrial developments, Class A type industrial developments. So we are trying to do as much as we can, and we're going more than the minimums.
So Dom, as long as you're on, we had a question in the chat from Marie, if evergreens will be planted atop the berms.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
And we increased the quantity a little bit too, incrementally from what we had in the original, the intermediate one, and then this latest revised plan that I sent to Carrie this morning.
Okay. Thank you for that input, and hopefully Marie, I'm sure she's listening. She was on earlier. So is there anyone else wishing to speak before we go to the commission?
Sam Dickman has raised his hand.
Okay. Sam, welcome.
All right, Sam, you should be able to speak. We'll just need your name and address for the record. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sam, I can hear you.
Hi, this is Sam Dickman Jr., 626 East Wisconsin Avenue, Suite 1020, Milwaukee 53202. I think our concern is that the term, I think, was 10 years on the conditional use permit. We just wanted to make sure that we were matching what we had for the other properties. We can't remember, but we don't believe there was a term limit on that. I think, Carrie, you may have a better recollection on that, but our concern is what happens in 10 years if we have a tenant that went in here for, say, 15 years and then the conditional use permit ran out in the middle of their tenancy.
Yes, so what we have, and this is something that we are now doing for similar type uses. So the last conditional use permit for a similar use would have had the same kind of term on it. If there is a tenant that would be leasing the space and would be in excess of what the 10-year term limit is for the conditional use permit, we would require an amendment to be submitted prior to the expiration of this permit so that you can extend that allowance. So it's essentially a conditional use permit before this one runs out, asking for a time frame extension.
Okay. We didn't want to get caught with tenants in the building that then all of a sudden their occupancy permit is no longer valid.
Understood.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank
We'll open it up to the commission.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point out that there were written comments that were submitted by the participants who've already spoken, by the neighbors. I just wanted to confirm with the neighbors that the issues that they raised, which were very similar to the written comments, were all that they wanted to share at this point, or ask if they wanted me to read their comments into the record.
Yeah, and I was just so confused here. I got a microphone.
Hey, Sam, you're on, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can tell I'm really confused. Well, I just wanted to add one comment, and that besides what Sam asked for, and that is that I think we, as a percentage of the cost of the project, we spend more on landscaping on this building than we ever have. We have also included an irrigation system so that the greenery will be green a lot longer and the plants will grow better. And believe me, we've had a very good relationship with not only the city, but with the neighbors here as well. And if there are, Rob in particular, you have my card, you know where my number is. And if there's any problems, we haven't lived up to or exceeded your expectations, I would hope that you would get in touch with me, and we'll take care of the problem. So we do appreciate working with the city and with the neighbors. Nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, but generally having an industrial building where there's a nice field does not get good reception. But our history has been that we've been good neighbors, and we hope to continue that with this project. So I thank you. And now I'll turn it off.
Great, thank you, Sam. Carrie, would you like to continue and read those in the record, or whatever you intended?
Okay, so what I wanted to say was that the neighbors who already spoke raised many of the issues that they had in the written submission. And if they are satisfied with what they have said tonight, then I will not read their comments into the record. If they wish for me to read their written comments into the record, I can certainly do so. In particular, I'm referring to the Millers or the Muellers. I apologize if I am pronouncing your name incorrectly.
All right, they did raise their hand.
Thanks, Carrie. You can just submit it as written. You don't have to read it. I basically said what I had to say. I did have one other question, and that was on the thing about the trucks not being allowed on Oakwood. Does that include the smaller delivery type trucks? Because I know that things improved when one of the tenants stopped having their guys go up and down the road, even with the smaller trucks that are permissible. But it would be great to have whatever tenants going in there realize, please go out to Howell rather than down Oakwood. Even with the smaller, and also come in through Howell rather than zip down Oakwood, which is 25 miles an hour anyway.
Right, and Margaret, we talked pretty much at length about that a couple weeks ago. I was at the PD there. They're very much well aware of the problem. They have stepped up some enforcement, and quite a few tickets have gone out. That is a no trucking route. That there are signs for that. So I do believe, like Greco has smaller delivery trucks, and they're not allowed that way either. Right. Obviously, if they're going to make a delivery to the seller or something like that, maybe. But for the most part, everybody in that park is pretty well aware, and should be, that you don't go west on Oakwood.
Okay. All right. So, thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to the commissioners and see if they have any questions, comments. Christine, would you like to start us, please?
Sure. So my only comment / no question, actually, it's a comment. I'm glad to hear that the addition of no trucking on West Oakwood Road has been added. And I heard you, Mayor, saying that you were at the PD and they're adding some enforcement there. So if I can recommend or suggest for them to use those speed monitoring so people can see their speed going down the road, that would be helpful also to monitor the situation instead of them stationing people or police officers everywhere in Oakwood. So I don't know.
I can, we can request that, the speed trailer out there. And it certainly does help control it for some time. Enforcement, and again, enforcement doesn't just include trucks, it includes residents.
Correct.
If a resident gets a ticket going 35, 40 miles an hour there, please don't complain to me because you've asked for the enforcement. So just a warning.
Which they should know better.
they should, but you know how it goes.
I know.
So, okay, but good point. So
that's all the comments I have. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, anything?
No, that's been good conversation. I guess to speak to, I believe it was Tom's inquiry on the estimated distance from the building to Oakwood. I used a few of our measuring tools that we have with their plans, and it appears to be roughly from the edge of asphalt, give or take 10, 12 feet, 15 feet, but close to 100 feet off of Oakwood.
Okay.
So outside of that, we have no comments. It seems to be thoroughly discussed, and Carrie did a great job on the conditions.
Great, thanks, Matt. Dawn,
No questions.
Greg?
No questions. Just thank you to the applicant for working with the residents in the area. So
That
that's
is
all.
Very, very refreshing. Chris?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Don
No, I have no questions.
and Fred.
No comments. Looks good.
Okay, Chauncey.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll look for a motion, please.
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission recommends that the Common Council adopt the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot facility within the multi-tenant building on the property at 10303 South Oakview Parkway.
Lorical second.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Great. Thank you very much to the Dickmans. Thank you for working with the residents. Residents, thank you for speaking up. We always need that input, and it's not always the easiest conversations, but it is helpful. So thank you very much. Item 5C, it is a request for a rezone for the property at 7140 South 13th from RS3 single family residential to B4 highway business with no change to the floodway. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request is to rezone the property and there are no changes proposed to that floodway, so thank you for mentioning it. There is an existing home on that property, and that while the request is just for a rezone, it doesn't have anything to do with the use itself. There are some details that have been provided by the applicant for what the proposal would include for the reuse of the property. So they want to renovate the existing home for a 4-unit office building. Right now they have 2 employees that are slated to work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the property. If we turn to the comprehensive plan and what it says for this area, you can see that the majority of this area is in red, which is for commercial use. This is one of the last remaining residential properties that are anticipated for future commercial use in this area. So rezoning the property is in line with the comprehensive plan for future use of the property. As you can see, again, the parcels in the area are also zoned for commercial. There's B4 with a conditional use, B4 and a PUD. And in the extended area, the zoning goes to B3 and B2 to the north, M1 to the east, B3 and I1 to the south-southwest. So the majority of the properties in this area are slated to be commercial. So this is in keeping with the area as well as the comprehensive plan. So even though there is, this is just for the rezone, rezoning does not preclude the applicant from obtaining any future reviews. Future reviews that may be required based on what the specifics of the use of the property are going to be include site and building plan review. That's for any change to the property itself or to the building on the exterior, sign permits and things of that nature. So with that, there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Kevin, is there a resident wishing to weigh in or provide a comment?
There is no one on for this item.
Okay. Commissioners, we'll start with Commissioner Chandler. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Fred?
No comments.
Don?
No comments.
Chris?
No comments for me.
Greg?
No, thank you. No comments.
Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Matt?
Nothing.
And Christine, anything?
Nothing here.
I have nothing either, so we will go to motion, please.
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property at 7140 South 13th Street be rezoned from RS3 Single Family Residential to B4 Highway Business. No change to the floodway district after a public hearing.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay, we have approved the rezone. We will now move on to item D, and that is a review of site building and related plans for We Energies for two additions to the existing tank buildings for the property at 4801 East Oakwood. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There may be some confusion with regard to the address for this property. Typically, they just refer to the generating facility here as one property on Oakwood, but each of these is its own individual parcel. So if there's any confusion with that, hopefully that clears that up. Current zoning is M1, and there isn't a lakefront overlay district that affects this area. The proposal, as the mayor said, is for two additions to the existing tank buildings. Because this is a utility, they are exempt from setback requirements. That's why there's nothing listed here. Tank unit 1, that addition is about 225 square feet. Tank unit 2 is about 388 square feet. We'll get into what those look like in just a moment. These are the locations. As you can see, it's not going to be anything that's on the west side of the facility, nothing that'll be viewed from any of the surrounding properties. You probably won't even notice it if you're out on the lake, to be honest with you. The insulated metal panels that they have chosen for the building will match as closely as possible in terms of look and color to the existing facility. Now, the use of metal panels, of course, requires a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission because it's not recommended or is not allowed as a primary exterior building material in code. But since this is an addition, the Plan Commission does have the authority to make that exception. Due to the location and the nature of the additions, landscape plans are not required for this proposal. Here are the existing facilities with the red outlines where the buildings will go. And the elevations show pretty much just a little bump out, which is what the tank facility will look like. You probably won't even notice it. And most people won't ever be in this area to notice it, to be honest with you. Each of the additions are going to be about 21 feet in height. Again, on the east side of these buildings, nothing that can be seen from the neighbors. So if there are any questions, can certainly try and answer those, but there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen for Plan Commission consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Kevin, is there a representative from We that would like to speak, or would they like to wait, or are they not with us?
Yep, we have a couple. Rob Steer, the administrator for this project, is raising his hand. Rob, you should be able to speak. We'll need your name and address for the record.
This is actually Jim Filer with Anderson Ashton. I believe Scott Leonard from the power plant is on. If there's any questions as to the use of the building, tank building, but as explained, metal panels to match. It's a metal roof, small metal building addition for process for the power plant. And house a tank. They're just, generation station 1 and 2 that need the identical facility.
Okay. If there's no other statements, we'll go to the commission. Christine, any questions, comments?
No, like Carrie said, I was looking over the document, and like she said, nothing will be obvious from the outside, so no comments.
Okay, Matt?
I have none.
Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Greg?
I have no concerns. Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
None for me either.
Don?
No questions.
Okay, Fred?
No questions.
Chauncey?
I do have a question for the applicant. Can you provide a little more information on the purpose of the additions? Are you bringing in new tanks, or tanks are there and they need to be covered?
All right, Peter, you should be able to speak.
All right, yeah, the back end, the absorber buildings are to meet environmental compliance with the air permits. And due to some recent regulations, we have been starting to pump a new mercury re-emission chemical into the absorber units themselves, but that's been in a temporary configuration. There's cost savings associated with ordering the material in a bulk for bulk pricing. And we're basically making the existing chemical injection system permanent with these building bump outs. There's no existing space inside of the building for to house the 6,300 gallon tanks. So we would like to utilize the building bump out to house the chemical storage tank inside the building.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, one additional question, and I want to say this is for the fire department. Is there anything special that is needed for such an addition that's on the back of the buildings?
No, this is a non-hazardous, or the chemical is not on the CERCLA hazardous material list and is not flammable or combustible liquid. And we will be storing this chemical in the bulk storage tank, which is a double walled tank with a leak detection system within the interstitial area within the tank.
So for the material, must it be transported out of this tank at some point in time, or is just being recirculated into the building?
It will be injected into the existing absorber vessel that's inside the building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Havey, any comments out of fire we should be concerned with?
Right now, I'm having problems with my camera and lighting is pretty poor. We don't have any concerns. We work really closely with the folks at We Energies for hazardous materials reporting and emergency response. So we have no concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mike. There's no further questions. Motion, please.
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Pete Segalis, We Energies, for the property at 4801 East Oakwood Road.
Hannah, okay, we have so many.
I think Hannah's second. That's what I heard. But, okay. Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorik, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Item E, Plan Unit Development Amendment. Review a request submitted by John Schluter, Frontline Commercial Real Estate Development, to amend the existing plan unit development to remove the property at 9141 South 13th. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's actually the entirety of the request. Current zoning is B4 PUD, and there is an existing PUD that affects this property as well as the two properties to the south. A little bit of history for those who recall, whenever we were talking about the comprehensive plan amendment for this property, the PUD was established in Ordinance 805 in 1979 for those three properties. It was last amended January of this year to allow hotels and restaurants on the property at 9315 and to also bring that PUD more in line with what current code requirements are. However, as part of that comprehensive plan amendment and in light of the future development plans for this property, utilizing the property in commercial as a commercial use is no longer valid, and therefore they are asking to be removed from that PUD, which requires that all the properties be commercial in nature. So the request to actually rezone this property is next on the agenda, and this is required prior to being able to rezone that property. They are both required in order to develop the property with the anticipated multi-tenant industrial facility that we have been talking about as part of the comprehensive plan amendment, which was amended to business park in November of this year. So want to also clarify that, like the previous rezone request and with the rezone request that's next on the agenda, this does not preclude the need to go forward with additional reviews. Additional reviews may include site and building plan review that would incorporate comments and requirements related to buffers in the area, landscape requirements, obviously, the need for reduced and shield lighting as we've been discussing on other items, truck routes as we've also been discussing, that's going to be a hot topic, and typically taking a look at just the impact to the neighborhood in general. There's a lot of residential in that area that we've been talking about, and the applicant is well aware of the need for future reviews to address these residential concerns. Other reviews may include a master sign plan for the property, and of course, stormwater and grading. So with all of that in mind, we do have a suggested motion that recommends approval, removing this property from the existing planned unit development. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant with us? Do they want to say anything, or can we go right to the commission?
The applicant is on to answer questions if needed.
Okay, we'll start. Chauncey, you want to start us out?
Sure. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Fred.
No questions.
Don.
No questions.
Chris.
None for me either.
Greg.
No questions, thank you.
Dawn.
Nothing for me.
Matt.
No questions.
And Christine.
I actually have a question for Carrie, just for me to understand. So when you say remove it from the PUD and to allow for a restaurant and hotel to be built, and what I saw here on the picture or the slide you had on, it looked like an industrial building. So are we having industrial zoning or commercial?
No, so the request is to remove this property, which would be manufacturing or industrial in nature, from the PUD that requires all the commercial development. The last amendment to the PUD allowed hotels and restaurants on the property that's south of this one. So 9315 is the one that was it was amended to allow hotels and restaurants on that. But the entire PUD is commercial in nature. It doesn't allow for manufacturing facilities, which is why the request to remove this property from the PUD is before the Plan Commission.
Okay. All right. With that, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. I do not have any questions myself either, so if there's no further comments, motion.
Hold on, he moves that
Guzikowski
commission recommends that.
Guzikowski makes a motion that Guzikowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approve the planned unit development amendment, removing the property at 9141 South 13th Street after a public hearing.
Lorical second.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Hold on, yeah.
Sleeper, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, and that will get us to the connected rezone, as Carrie mentioned, and that's a review submitted by John Schluter, Frontline Commercial Real Estate. to rezone that property in 9141 South 13th from B4 Highway to business, B4 Highway Business to M1 Manufacturing. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, we are talking about this property, rezoning it to allow for a multi-tenant industrial building, future multi-tenant industrial building on the property, allowing that in an M1 district. So a little bit of background on this particular one. Surrounding properties in the area, as we discussed during the comprehensive plan amendment, on the west side of 13th Street, pretty much before up and down to the intersection. When we get to the north of this property, it's zone B3 and RS3, RD1 and RS2 to the northeast, and RS3 immediately across the street, as well as M1 to the southeast. That is the Aldi distribution facility. So that gives you a bit of information about the neighborhood. And of course, across the freeway, you get into some multi-family residential properties as well. So we mentioned that the comprehensive plan was amended to business park in November of this year, and this is a reminder of what the comprehensive plan calls for in terms of business park type uses and developments. Now, the future development, of course, we mentioned reviews would be required for anything that happens on this property, would allow for permitted uses in the M1 district. In this case, the proposal would include such things as a manufacturing, fabric manufacturing facility and food distribution. Primary operating hours, even though not part of the rezone, at this point are anticipated to be 7 a.m. to 5:30, although of course distribution would be outside of those hours and likely 24/7 depending on the tenant needs. There might be a small scale retail or wholesale component as part of one of these uses, probably the manufacturing facility would have that. Not sure if any of the other tenant spaces would have a need for that, but it would be allowed in the M1 district. Right now, it's anticipated that up to 80 truck trips a day would be seen on the property, to and from the property, for the distribution component. And all told, about 65 employees at peak would be anticipated based on these two use categories. That is the information that we have pertaining to the rezone. There is a suggested motion on the screen for commission consideration for approval. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. The applicant there just want to do questions. Kevin?
Available if there are questions. We did have a neighbor sign up as well.
Please let the neighbor go.
All right, Tom and Denise Abler, you should be able to speak.
Why are we doing this?
Hi, this is Denise Abler at 1230 West York Street. We have been following this since the first request for the rezoning. And I guess I'm a little confused on what is really being proposed and what's going to happen with that property. I know I have spoken not directly to John, but via email. And I did contact our alderman on some concerns about traffic and that type of thing. It's hard to approve of this when you really don't know what's going to go into that property and what it's going to look like. So could John help us out with what he's proposing or planning?
Fair enough. I think that's a fair question. John, are you with us? Can you shed some light and kind of clear that up for Denise?
Absolutely. Tom and Denise, good to be talking to you again, and the whole commission. The building will be masonry and glass construction. Your corner of the building will actually be in elevation that's about 16 feet below grade. So there is going to be an enormous natural berm between your home and the building. There will be significant vegetation screening, actually more than is even shown in the drawing. There will be no outside storage. Everything will be contained within the building. The truck traffic, which I think is the thing that has been discussed the most at previous meetings, will be directed southbound. And actually, Denise, based on what I thought was an excellent suggestion from you, actually, or maybe the two of us together, I'm not sure exactly how we came up with this, but instead of having the driveway to exit go straight to the east, actually curve it to the south, as you see on the map, so that trucks would be forced to drive south to the Ryan Road interchange. Did I answer your question?
Partially. When you say that the building is going to be lowered so that there's natural vegetation or whatever, and we won't see much of the building, how tall is the building actually going to be at the base?
32 feet.
32. So you're saying it's below grade by 16 feet. So we're still seeing 16 feet of the building then?
That is correct.
So then to me, I'm guessing I'm finding it hard to understand how there's a lot of natural vegetation that's going to cover that extra 16 feet there. I mean, I could see a little bit from this graphic here, and it looks like, I'm assuming the green type of circle things are, whether they're shrubs or whatever. But if you're putting trees there, unless you're putting mature trees, they're not going to be 16 feet.
That 16 feet is lower than the height of a two-story house.
Okay.
And there would be conifer trees that would be up, certainly planted in the ground, so above the elevation, which would screen a large portion of the building.
Okay. And yes, you and I both, I think, talked about that with the trucks being actually routed so that they would be basically forced to go towards Ryan Road and not towards us. But is that something that the county has to approve of? Because it's a county road, correct?
We would be, you are correct, it is a county road, and we would be working with the county for that cut. And I would be happy to work with both the county and the city of Oak Creek, promising that we would direct traffic to the south from the truck side of the building.
Mm-hmm. And then if I'm understanding, there's a possibility that you would have a certain number of traffic coming from employees. And my guess would be that they would be using that road from either direction, whether it's from Drexel or Ryan.
I would personally propose allowing employee vehicles, cars and SUVs to enter from the north or south, whatever is most convenient from their home.
I understand that, but for those of us who live in this neighborhood, specifically Tom and I, because we're going to be pretty close to this, there's already quite a bit of traffic, car traffic, small trucks, deliveries from Amazon, whatever it is. I can't see, well, I guess I'm having a hard time explaining myself here, but I just feel that there's going to be a lot more traffic here. And Tom had once before mentioned that there's kind of a blind spot when you come out of our street on York and people are coming up 13th Street from Ryan. It kind of, the road is a dip, and sometimes you can't even see traffic coming up that road. And I'm really concerned about not just the noise and the traffic, but accidents. Is there any way we can look at something? I know that's not your whole part of your problem, but is there any way that the county can address that, or the city?
I would absolutely work with the county and the city to make whatever modifications would be best for the neighborhood. Absolutely. And as far as further, whether it's conversation via email or giving me a call, and I'm quite confident you have my number. I'd like
Yes,
to
we do.
work with you and everyone with the city to make this a great development.
Okay, what is the difference between the rezoning and the prior rezoning that was previously denied or approved, whatever, a month ago? So exactly why are we doing this? I guess I'm still confused on this.
Okay, so this is Carrie. I'm a planner. What was approved previously was actually an amendment to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan showed that this area was supposed to be all commercial, but the Plan Commission and the Common Council considered that business park as a future use might be appropriate for it, and that was what was approved. That had to occur before we could rezone the property, and the rezone is for M1 manufacturing. That's the zoning district that gets into the requirements for this property, such as setbacks, height limitations, the uses for the property, and those kinds of things. So it's a sequential thing that we have to do. The comprehensive plan has to be amended before we can talk about rezoning the property. Right now is rezoning the property. The previous agenda item, this property was subject to a different approval that required commercial use. And since we already amended the comprehensive plan to allow for business park use, the PUD was incompatible with what the projection of the future development for this property would be. I understand that it's kind of confusing, but it is a sequential order of things that have to go forward in order to develop this property with the proposal that's before us.
Yeah. I know it seemed like it was talking about industrial and other things. Tom and I at one point were talking with other neighbors, and we were told at one point that they thought a apartment complex was going in here. So it was quite a surprise to us that all of a sudden there's an industrial building or manufacturing moving in. Me personally, nothing against you, John, and I know that you want to make money. I kind of not still happy with what's being proposed here. I kind of concerned about noise, traffic, whether or not there's going to be extra trash along the roads, those type of things, and how that affects our property value when we want to sell our property. Because to me, if a prospective person is coming into our residential subdivision, which is a great subdivision, that I think might be a negative for us.
And it could be perceived that way without a doubt. You know, it is a commercial, it does sit on a county trunk, a county highway. And if you look at the history of that land, it was American and Madison, now it's Steinhoffel's. You know, if things would have progressed, possibly, you know, and commercial would have stayed viable, brick and mortar, it could have ended up a large department store of some sort, which would have lent all sorts of traffic. So it's kind of a horse apiece that traffic wise, I'm not going to speculate on the trucks, but if you put in a large apartment complex, you would have multiple trips of traffic through there as well. That's really hard to speculate on that, Denise. I think you're buffered a little bit from it. I know that doesn't ease your mind, but I'm not an expert on how that affects property values. I will say the community on the whole, the values have held strong regardless of the development that's occurred in an area around it. But you know, it all depends on the buyers and the current market.
Right, and I agree with you. If an apartment complex did go in there, there would still be that amount of traffic from cars coming and going. But with this possibility of a fabric manufacturing, does that include any possibility of any chemicals or undue odors, smells, those type of things?
Denise, I can speak to that directly because that is my business. And the answer is no. We are currently in the city of Oak Creek, and we're not manufacturing fabric as much as processing fabric, making it into something else. For example, the tents that might be at Lambeau Field or at Summerfest, we're fabricating parts of that out of fabric. We are not making the fabric itself. I'm sorry if that was misstated.
No. That might have been just my take on reading some previous minutes or looking at something. I was just curious.
Hi, this is Tom. Just a quick comment, just to make sure I got this straight. It's nice to have the layout that's appreciated. Now, this is the first time I think I actually saw how this is going to lay out. So if I see this correctly, the south end is where the trucks are going to be entering and leaving and unloading, and the north end where those small hash marks, those are the parking or employee parking. So essentially, the employee parking is going to be entering in the north, and the trucks are going to be dumping out, like you said, in a right angle south to Ryan. Is that correct? Where the
Yes, Tom, that is correct.
Yeah, that's to me that is somewhat comforting that at least the trucks are going to be further south, and like you said, that you're going to direct them to the right where they wouldn't really have the possibility of going across traffic, because that dip in the road. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tom, this is Alderman Guzikowski. I just wanted to chime in. I've been advocating for this motion to pass because I feel that what he brings to the table, what John brings to the table, is going to be the best for both worlds. It's going to not hit it's going to be a positive for our tax base, but the other positive is it's going to be real minimal impact for the neighborhood. And that's what we've been pushing for from the get-go. And John is very sensitive to the needs of the neighborhood, and he's been very responsive every time we've talked. So I feel like this is really a better get for us, even though there's some uneasiness with light manufacturing. What he's going to be bringing in, it's not going to be really noticeable. I don't believe for one moment that you're going to be impacted by it. Okay. And conversely, I think you're going to have the building's also going to help from a noise perspective, buffering the sound off of the interstate with no sound walls. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And I'm not saying I'm totally against this, but it's just because Tom and I have been listening to some of these other planning meetings and listening to other neighbors' issues with proposed properties being installed near their neighborhoods, it kind of makes us a little uneasy, if you understand where we're coming from.
Oh, sure. Yeah, especially for coming in just cold feet. You're listening and going, what's going on next? No, it's very controlled with what's going on. And it's hard, you can't really compare apples to apples, but it's easy to when you're listening to it. So we really, and relying on our staff who has been kind of taking the lead on this. Carrie, really, I appreciate all of the effort she's gone through to help kind of model this and get us to hopefully the finish line with John here. So.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Okay, Tom. Okay, with that, Denise, if something pops in your head, just give us a jingle. I'll see if the commissioners got any questions, comments.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Christine, anything?
No, nothing here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Nothing in regards to the rezoning, no.
Okay. Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Greg?
No, nothing at this time. Thank you.
Chris?
No, I'm set at this point. Thanks.
Okay. Don?
No questions or comments.
Fred?
No comments.
Chauncey?
I do have a question for the applicant and possibly Carrie. Based on the description of the type of manufacturing that will occur here, is can you provide more information on if maybe this should be a light manufacturing rezone versus a manufacturing rezone?
Chauncey, I can kind of answer that. The zoning district allows for this type of use in the M1 district. We did look at the LM1 as a consideration, but it does not offer the range of uses that would be seen in this particular development.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. And just for clarity, a quick question for the applicant. So you're going to be processing or manufacturing fabric, is this correct?
That's correct. We convert the fabric from rolls of fabric to, it's called Keder, K-E-D-E-R. Nobody's ever heard of it, but we process the fabric into Keder, which is actually what, it's a fabric retention device. It's used in tents, it's used in signage for stores. Every Home Depot in the country utilizes our product to hold their signs in place. If that explains it at all.
Yes. Thank you. No more
Thank you.
questions from me.
Okay. Everything's pretty well been covered from my end. I have nothing. So unless there's further comments, we'll entertain a motion.
Guzikowski will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property at 9141 South 13th Street be rezoned from B4 Highway Business to M1 Manufacturing after a public hearing.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Ldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay. Okay, John, we're set there. Good luck. This moves us on to a plan review, and this is for an addition to the Quick Trip to the existing convenience store in the property at 9535 South 13th. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property is currently zoned B4. It does have a conditional use permit attached to it. There's floodway and flood fringe that's on the property. However, they are not in the areas where the proposed addition is. It is a 1,544 square foot addition that will be between the existing store and the car wash that is on the south side of the store. The expansion is for the freezer and cooler area, coffee area, mechanical and storage areas, and there are interior renovations that are occurring that are affected by this as well. The exterior walk-in freezer that is on the south side of the property currently, or on the south side of the building, I should say, that will be removed to accommodate this proposal. These are the existing conditions for the property. You'll see that the area that we are going to be discussing is right behind this fenced area. If you can see my cursor, that is exactly the area where this addition will be placed. Let's see here. You can get an idea of just exactly how this will play out here. This is the site plan that's proposed. Now there will be some changes that are going to be required. The existing fence will be removed. Some parking stalls will be affected by the construction. However, they're not losing any parking stalls in terms of count. The areas that will be affected, if the bike rack and those such things that are being affected are going to be removed, in some cases they will be relocated. On the screen right now, it shows you the interior layout, the proposed interior layout for the renovations. What is in white is what's affected by this particular proposal. Now that includes the interior of the store already, but it gives you an idea of just how the renovations and the addition are going to merge with each other. So setbacks, dimensional requirements for the addition are of course met with this proposal. The interior renovations, while not part of this review, do inform how that addition is going to affect the remainder of the store. As I mentioned, the fence, the bollards, the vacuum island, and a bike rack will be removed, relocated where possible. The landscaping requirements are not actually applicable to this particular addition. However, they are proposing for an existing concrete curb island to be changed to a landscape island. They are going to be putting in 3 additional shrubs. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. And as I previously mentioned, no changes to the number of parking stalls, no changes to the pumps, canopy, lighting, signs, or hours of operation, or anything else having to do with this particular property. On the screen right now are the proposed elevations. There's nothing being done to the north elevation, so you'll not really notice anything there. On the south is exactly what we're talking about. You will note that there is a cutaway that shows the mechanical units. That's just showing you where the locations are. The roof will actually screen the mechanical units. You currently cannot see them from the road at this time. Elevations for the east and west, basically just showing a connection on the east. The west, it's set back a little bit, so you will see the screening for the existing remaining items that are outside in this area. The car wash facility will be pretty much unaffected by this, although it will be connected to the building. Again, the RTUs will be screened by the roof element. The building materials are on the screen right now. These are going to match what is existing for the building. There is a requirement per code that brick be the minimum modular dimension, so that 4-inch thickness that we are talking about. If that is something that does not match currently and cannot be accommodated, the Plan Commission does have the authority to change that for an addition to meet what is existing. We've not received any information as to the dimensions for the brick. There is a suggested condition of approval in the motion that the brick would be that standard 4-inch modular. There is one more item to discuss, and that is with regard to the existing conditional use permit on the property. Plan commissioners may note that the narrative request that was included as part of the packet mentioned outdoor storage. Outdoor storage was not specifically approved by that 2009 conditional use permit. And with every outdoor storage request in the city, that does require conditional use approval specifically. The applicant does have the opportunity or option to request a separate review for outdoor storage, but that would be something to talk about in the future. That would be a conditional use permit amendment. No storage or display of merchandise would be allowed by the pumps, however, and that's for maneuverability and also for fire department considerations. That's a hazard, and it's a safety hazard. With that, there is a suggested motion on the screen. It is in 2 parts with conditions. If there are any questions with regard to the conditions, I can certainly try and answer them for the Plan Commission. Mr. Mayor.
Carrie, I don't know if the applicant's with us. Kevin, anyone out there?
We do have the architect available if there's questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll go right to the commission. Chauncey, let's start on your end this time.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Fred?
No questions.
Don?
No questions. Looks like it's just going to blend right in with the whole building.
Pretty much. Chris?
No questions except for, are they closing at all during any of this remodel or renovation? And how soon is this going to start? This is the Quick Trip I stop at every day. So I'm just curious how that's going to impact my daily life for my coffee. Do we know?
I don't know. I would imagine they're going to stay open, but we can go to the applicant for that.
Okay, at the end if they.
Sure. Dean, you should be able to speak. You have to hit *6 to unmute yourself on the phone. No one need your name and address for the record.
Okay, this is Dean Schultz with Excel Engineering, 100 Camelot Drive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. They will keep the station open during the entire construction.
Okay.
It's slated to start late spring.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Is that it, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Greg,
No questions, thank you.
Dawn,
Nothing for me.
Matt,
Nothing.
and Christine.
Nothing here, thank you.
No, I have nothing either. It's pretty seamless. It'll blend right in. So
Nice
I'm good with it.
changes.
Yeah. So motion, please.
Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission approves site and building plans submitted by Chris McGuire, Quick Trip, for the property at 9535 South 13th Street with the following conditions. One, that all relevant code requirements are in effect. Two, that the exterior brick veneer meets the minimum 4-inch dimensional requirement per code. 3, that all mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftop shall be screened from view. And 4, that no outdoor storage is approved as a part of this plan. All requests for the outdoor storage and display of retail merchandise shall require an amendment to the existing conditional use permit in conformance with the applicable code requirements. 5, that all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Lonnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay, there you have it. And that'll get us to 5H, and that is our last item, actually. It's a temporary use permit, and this is a review to request temporary use permit submitted by Aaron Tesh, Adult Day Services of Southeastern Wisconsin, for temporary operation of an adult daycare facility within a portion of the Oak Creek Community Center located at 8580 South Howell Avenue. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a temporary use permit request, and it's a little bit of an interesting situation because it's within an existing building. We had to take a look at this a little bit more closely, determined that the I-1 zoning district, which is where the community center currently resides, does not allow for this particular type of use as an allowed use. So temporary use is required. It is for the temporary operation of an adult day services location. We'll get into what that means in a little bit. The temporary location is due to the temporary closure of their existing grant center facility, and that's a county-owned property. And that's been temporarily closed due to the COVID situation. So we'll talk about how that affects this particular conditional use or temporary use permit as well. There are no changes that are being proposed to the site or the building to accommodate this temporary use as well. Excuse me. No medical lodging or meal services are provided. This is purely for recreational and cultural activities for adults with developmental needs. Up to 25 participants are anticipated to be at the facility at any given time, with 4 to 5 employees at peak. Hours of operation between 7:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Now, the participants are actually dropped off at the facility, either by caregivers or by transportation companies. However, Adult Day Services of Southeast Wisconsin does have 2 passenger vehicles right now that can provide accommodations if necessary. And they do have other resources if they are necessary in the future. Based on this information, the parking at the Oak Creek Community Center appears to be sufficient for the proposal, in addition to being able to utilize the remainder of the facility as anticipated. There's no definitive timeline, as you can imagine, for reopening that Grant Center facility. It's all based on how this plays out. So the temporary lease that the applicant has entered into with the Oak Creek Community Center is for a minimum of 3 months, beginning in January, with an option up to 6. So with that in mind, there are conditions of approval in the suggested motion that recognize the extent of the lease term, essentially, and providing a recommendation for the temporary use permit to expire June 30th. That's for council or for commission discussion, but there is a suggested motion for approval. We did receive a letter from a neighbor saying that she was very much in support of this request. She is on Shepherd Avenue. Her name is Pam Rivera. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we go to the commission, just a little background on this. Aaron had reached out to me some months back, and Carrie really summed it up well. You know, some of the collateral damage of the pandemic has affected the adult daycare services of southeastern Wisconsin, and they were looking for a place to provide service for the individuals that are in need. And they asked me, you know, what would be available in Oak Creek, and I right away went to the community center because it blends well with their mission. And the community center has been impacted greatly by the pandemic as well. So it's another great partnership that serves the community and individuals in a totally positive way, in my opinion. Once they met and realized that the space would work, they came back to me and said what was needed, and that's when I directed them to Carrie and staff to get the appropriate temporary use in place and go through the process. So that's how we arrived at where we are. So I'll turn it over to the commission and for questions, comments. Christine?
Yes, I actually have one comment, and I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding that adult day services or not. Are they going to be needing any health services in case of emergency or some sort of instant need, I guess?
We can let the applicant. I think with any business, you know, our fire departments and paramedics are on staff to service anybody within our city or provide mutual aid to those that might have a medical issue. But I don't think day in and day out they do, but I'll let the applicant take that one if he's with us.
Yes, we as an agency, at times.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need your name and address for the record.
Thank you,
I'm
Carrie.
Aaron Tesh, 2039 South 59th Street, West Allis, Wisconsin. They, as any business, we at times do need medical attention, first responders. Nothing out of the ordinary. We do have some people who do have some seizure disorders, but nothing, everybody is medically stable that we serve. So we're not, everybody that's coming to us is not, it has been screened and has had doctor's approval and physician's approval to come to our programs. So we recognize that some people are a little bit more fragile and a little bit more vulnerable, but nothing really out of the ordinary. Everybody is, I wouldn't say everybody, but a good portion of our people are ambulatory. Some people do use assistive devices as walkers, canes, but everybody is fully ambulatory too.
Okay, thank you. And just to maybe clarify why I asked this question, just to see if nearby hospitals or emergency cares needs to know of your temporary use permit so they can accommodate if needs to be. That's the only reason I'm trying to understand here.
No, I don't believe that we do. I think what I'm trying to do here with this temporary use permit is start that conversation, and we're having this conversation here, and I don't think that the hospitals need any more preparation to serve our people than anybody. If that makes, is that?
Yes, that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Very good question, actually. Matt?
I have no questions or comments.
Okay. Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Greg?
Thank you. I think this is overall good for Oak Creek. I don't know if I'm a little confused on the background. Is this an expansion of services from elsewhere, or was it shut down because of the pandemic in another location? And was this location chosen because you can spread out a little bit more, or was there additional, I guess, are you looking for additional precautions with this location over your previous one?
So the history is that when the COVID started, Milwaukee County chose to shut down the Willoway Grant Center, which is located in Grant Park. This is an existing program that is operating less than half capacity of, we serve near 40 people per day. When we pre-COVID, we're about 19, 20 right now. So basically what our ownership, we have 4 different programs. We are operating 3 of them. We are temporarily operating this Grant Center program out of St. Luke's Church on 18th Avenue in South Milwaukee. Unfortunately, that building is being sold. So it has been sold. So the first of the year is when they want us, or that's when our lease will end there. That was always going to be a temporary month-to-month kind of deal until Milwaukee County has decided they can open up. So to keep this program open and serving the people that we're serving, we're looking for that alternative location just to keep an existing program running at 50%.
Okay, so this is just in the meantime until the county opens the facilities back up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
This is just a great fit for the community center. I heard about it 2 weeks ago at a meeting, and I knew that this would be coming up. And it truly is the shutdown of one situation where Oak Creek's going to step up and fill the void here as well. So I totally support this 100%.
Great, thank you, Chris. Don?
No questions. Yeah, glad to help. Hopefully this works out.
Okay. Fred?
I think it's a great opportunity for the center and for the other people. So I totally support it.
Thank you. Chauncey?
Yes, I do have one question for the applicant. So based on what we see on this map, all of the areas in yellow will be used for these services. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I noticed in the write-up that each of the participants will bring their own lunch. And so is there like a place in one of these rooms for all the participants to store their lunch, or will you also be using the kitchen area?
No, we will not be using the kitchen area at all. We do have a cart that they put their lunches on at the beginning of the day, so that can be rolled into, usually rolled into a storage area, just or the coat room. Everybody brings a cold lunch, so it's pretty much sandwiches, salads, leftovers. We do have the ability to heat some lunches up in a microwave if need be. There is a little kitchen area. If you look at the room that is right of the social room, there is a little kitchenette there that we will have some a small refrigerator and a microwave. It's kind of like a lunchroom, or like a break room kind of setup. You know, nothing that we'll be doing full meals, full meal prep or anything.
Thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's all of my questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, I applaud the work that they're doing at Adult Daycare Services and the community center, and it's just a great example. You know, we've said this early on in this pandemic, we're all in it together, and everybody's affected in many ways, in different ways, and this is really just at the heart of what we are. We're a community. I'm just so glad the partnership worked out and that services can be provided to these individuals that, again, in all this commotion that's going on, things get left behind. So before I call for a motion, I'll just ask Assistant Chief Havey if there's any concerns from fire, or if you need to get together with adult daycare and speak with them. Anything, Mike?
No, actually, we're very supportive of community outreach like this. So our EMS services are, supportive of all residents and visitors alike. So, we are a little bit familiar with some of the care facilities in the community. So, this is something we'll support and assist as we can. I think it's a great project.
Great, thank you, Chief. That's it for me. I don't have anything else beyond that. So motion, please.
Lorick will move that the Plan Commission approve the temporary use permit request submitted by Aaron Tesh Adult Day Services of Southeast Wisconsin for the operation of an adult day services location on the property of 8580 South Howell Avenue, parcel address 340 East Putes Road, with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number 2, that all activities shall be located within the building. Number 3, that hours of operation are between 7:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. There shall be no overnight activities. Number 4, that the temporary use permit shall expire June 30th, 2021.
Kuzikowski will second.
Okay, roll call.
Aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, Aaron, thank you for the good work you're doing, and I'm glad it all worked out.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day or good evening.
Okay, before we adjourn, just a couple things. Really, first of all, I want to thank the commission. It's been a long night. You guys and ladies did a lot of relevant work here. And then more importantly, we've seen the presentation, and it's going to be busy going forward. We're going to have a lot of stuff going on. It's really exciting. You're really helping to shape the future of Oak Creek here. This is pretty serious work, from the code changes that we're doing to the exciting stuff at the lakes. So I know it was a long night, but thanks for the hard work, not just now, but you did it all year. And to our staff, holy cow, you guys, again, you killed it, because we had a very long agenda. You guys you always make us very well prepared. And I think we do a pretty good job. It's really hard. We allow the residents a lot of input to it, and well, they should. They have concerns, but we're able to clear that up, not only here, but behind the scenes. So really appreciate the work. You really, believe me, from my seat, you make it a million times easier. So thanks to everybody.
So,
yes.
Carrie, since everyone's here and we have to reschedule, keep the our first meeting. I'm sorry, I'm just losing it. Our discussion for the articles, the zoning codes. Sorry. So obviously we have to schedule another one. Is that something we want to just kind of touch on while everyone's here right now?
We try and make it as part of the regular meeting agenda wherever possible. It's just that tonight we knew was going to be extremely long, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to provide meaningful input, and that wasn't going to happen after, a 3-hour meeting. And we knew that. Everybody has their limit, and I do very much appreciate you accommodating the meeting prior to this. It's, as the mayor said, it's a long night and it's a lot of work, and I mentally check out after about an hour and a half in a meeting myself sometimes. So I can understand that. And our days are full of meetings. So I appreciate that. I think everybody should just have a wonderful holiday, and we'll schedule it in the new year. If I can, I'll make it part of one of the January meetings, but I also have to coordinate with our consultants to make sure they're available. So
Fair
look
enough.
for an email.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all. We will have one more. No, this is it.
This is it.
correct?
This is it
We
for the year.
canceled the 22nd, so this is it. So again, congratulations on a very difficult year, challenging year, but a busy year at that. Y'all did wonderful work. Wish you a great holiday. Please enjoy it. Be safe. And again, just 2021 will be great. We're going to have the lake going on and everything will start to get better. So as long as we do the right things, we'll be good. So that's all I got. So motion to adjourn.
Before I adjourn, I just wanted to mention, if you guys haven't been to the square, the celebrations committee did an excellent job. It's gorgeous. The lights are beautiful. Martin Law Offices helped pay for it. And so you guys really should take a time to be,
Yes.
time to walk through there.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Dawn. That's important.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 8:44.
Bickford seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, I.
Carrillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Holdani, aye.
Bickford, aye.
Chandler,
Okay.
aye.
All right, everybody. We will see you in